Hi, I'm Ed from Voyage Adventure Vans, and we're just going to take you a very quick run through of fitting our rear blind to a Sven Hedin. Yes, I know this isn't a Sven Hedin, and what we've done, just in order to make it simple, we've made a part blind. When you supplied the blind, you will have obviously a 1 meter deep or 1 meter long section of blind with zips sort of here and a fly screen if that's what you've ordered. On the inside you'll have this flap and you'll have 2 bits of Velcro. Obviously on the Sven Hedin you've got the wooden board for the back of the cupboards which comes across here, and then you've got the various shapes in it which allow the doors to shut through it. The other thing that you'll be supplied is a cutting knife, safety blade, and what would be useful would be a bit of masking tape or something where you can mark the centre of the van. The cutout isn't central to the van, it's central to the doors. The easiest way to find the centre of this is just to fold it in half, and then that's our centre line. You don't really need to mark the centre point of the outside of the van because the camera and this bung that is your centre point. In case we don't get a chance to film this going on a California, the California blind is exactly the same apart from the fact that it has a pocket which comes in here and a plastic strip which fits over these 2 catches. You unscrew these locator bolts and put them back over the plastic, which locks that into place, and pretty much that is your centre point. So that's the only difference on a California. So what we're going to do, these bits of Velcro are on the inside, and if this was a Sven Hedin, then you would have basically those 2 bits of Velcro stuck on the wood around about here. So that's your centre point, and that's where it's going to fit. In order to start fitting it, we've basically got to take the door rubber off. On a new van where this hasn't been off before, it is quite hard to get it off. You just need to basically grip it. I would suggest you probably don't need any tools, but it's probably easier to try and start pulling it off on a straight section. And for the Sven Hedin, we only need to pull it off from here to around here, and it should stay stuck at this point. And then the same on the other side. So we're going to start around here. So that's the point where we're going to start pulling the door rubber off. So it just helps. It's not really a right and a wrong way to do this, but you really do need to just force it off from the back. It really isn't easy. Honestly, don't try and film anything outside your house unless you live in the country. Some vans have more or less gloop in here than others. This van has got hardly any, and it is really hit and miss. So all I'm going to do is basically pull that off to that point, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So we're having to resort to a voiceover over a customer's van that we videoed but didn't record any audio when we were fitting their blind. So the first stage of this process is to start taking the door rubber off. Once it does come off, it's quite easy to carry on and follow that around. You need to pull the door seal off probably 6 inches below the bed on either side. You don't need to take it off a few inches either side of the centre point at the top. However, because it's so difficult to remove in the first place, once you've got it moved off one side like I did on this one, I just carried all the way round and then reattached it in the centre just to make it easy so the whole thing wasn't dangling down near the bottom and I didn't lose the centre point. It's important to keep the centre point of the door rubber because you don't want it to be sort of overstretched one side or the other. So you can see what I did here. I basically detached it in the middle, to carry on all the way along, but then immediately put it back once I'd gone past the centre point. And as I say, all this did was save me trying to start a fresh point on the right hand side in order to take that part off again. So I got it started in one place, worked my way around. So what we've done here, we've literally taken two small pieces of the self-adhesive backing off the Velcro, and we're going to use that just to tack. We're going to use that just to tack the blind in place where we think is central. The central strap does mark the centre point, and that should line up with the rear bung and the camera. But just in case you need to move it side to side a little bit later, it's best not to have the entire self-adhesive strip attached now. So having attached it where we think is central enough at this point, we're just going to put the flap over the metal that the door seal sits on, so it goes over the lip, and then we're just going to gently push the door rubber back over the flap of waterproof nylon. At this point, we're not trying to push the rubber seal back on completely, just enough to hold it. And we're basically pulling the nylon flap underneath the door seal and then just tapping it on gently behind it. The idea is to get the fabric seam as tight to the door seal as you can. This tightness is achieved by gently pulling the loose part of the flap across the door seal whilst holding the door seal slightly off the van, and then with tension, let's say on your right hand side where I am here, we're holding that tension and pushing the rubber trim back on. At this point you can mess around with this as much as you like, so pulling it off a little bit, tweaking it downwards, pulling it in. If you need to rotate it left or right, you can do so by loosening the tension on the rubber trim and then moving the blind up and down a bit. Having got the one side where you want it, it's time to move back and do the other side. Exactly the same process. You're just trying to keep the if you can aim to keep the nylon flap crease free as you pull it through the door rubber, then that would help prevent any leaks at a later date. This is waterproof nylon. It won't wick water through like carpet would or anything else that you trapped in there. So as long as you put it on, as long as you put the door seal back on firmly, you should have no problems. One area to be a little careful of is the corners. Because you've pulled the door seal off and it might have shrunk a little bit while it's been off, because maybe it was stretched when it was put on in the first place, then it will naturally want to roll inwards on the corners. So when you put it back on, just make sure you sort of grip the corners, rotate them outwards as you're tapping them on. So just make sure that the corners haven't had that tendency to roll inwards. Now at this point we looked at the level and it looked like it was a couple of mil down on the right hand side. So there was a little bit more of the bed showing. It was literally probably less than 5 mil, but what we did, we loosened up the door seal again, and just manipulated the blind sort of anti-clockwise, if you like. So we raised it up a little bit on the right hand side, pulled it down a little bit on the left hand side, just to readjust it. Once we were happy that it was correctly located, then went round with a sort of soft mallet and just tapped the door seal on fully. There's nothing stopping you using a normal hammer for this. Just be gentle with it and don't hit the bodywork. But we are literally just giving it a gentle tap, not trying to whack it or anything like that. And you could use your hands, no problem. Once you're totally happy with the final fitment, then just reach your hand in where the self-adhesive backing is on the Velcro, pull that off, and just pat the self-adhesive Velcro into place. That'll just keep the centre section locked in place and away from the catches. At this point, we're totally happy with the way the blind is sitting, and we're simply going to now take the safety blade and run it around the two parts. So I'm right-handed, so it's easier for me to hold the flap of nylon with my left hand, a little bit of tension on it, and then slide the safety blade around as close to the outside of the rubber as I can get. This will leave about a 5mm strip of nylon showing. It'll be very neat and almost unobtrusive. I find it easier to work in a clockwise direction, so do the two halves. I've started here on the centre to the right, and then I've gone to the full left side and then done up to the centre. It is important to mention though, at this point, once you've cut that flap off, it would be very difficult to readjust it. So make sure you're happy with it before you do that. When we're rolling the blind up from the rear of the van, you have got the advantage that you could roll it a lot higher than the shelf that goes across the back of the van. I would suggest not doing that. Two downsides to jamming it all the way up the top. Basically, the first one is that you won't be able to release it from the inside, which is probably the area that you would most likely operate it from. But also, if you roll it too high, then you would have a danger of it getting crushed by the door latches when you shut the door. So it's better to leave it sort of in a slightly dropped position and hanging below the shelf. This blind is available with a fly screen if required. We can also provide a lower section just to hide the garage area if you wish. In addition to the insulated rear door cover and blinds for the Crafter and MAN TGE vans, we also offer cab blinds, side window blinds, and specifically for the Sven Hedin, we offer an insulated inner for the side pod and a headboard cover. We do have a few other insulation and storage ideas in development, so please give us a like and follow. Thank you very much for watching.